Good morning, dolls, and welcome to Little Gretchen's workshop. So today I want to make some tiny boxes. Now I've actually made tiny boxes about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago when I was making bags, boxes, and luggage. But I decided I wanted to make some additional boxes to be other things that are sold at the dress shop. Now Aunt Janie and Aunt Bess do carry dresses, hats, purses, fans, perfume, and jewelry. But I thought it would be nice if they had a few jewelry boxes or trinket boxes that can be used as jewelry boxes. And although the most of the ladies in the community are pretty modest, there are occasions where they need somewhere to store their precious things. So I start the process by using some really thin shingles and some super thin coffee stir sticks. Now the really thin, inexpensive coffee stir sticks are the perfect size and scale, and when you buy or have shingles that are super thin, they're really, really easy to cut. So this project is really simple. Now in these early frames, I'm using the shingles in their full size, but they actually can be cut down to smaller lengths if you want a smaller box. Now you might want to actually measure the sides and the length of the little shingles to cut your coffee stir sticks, but I'm really kind of going rogue here and just using the side of the shingle to use as my template for my cuts. The cuts are really simple. A good sharp blade will go through them really, really quickly. Always be careful and mindful of your fingers when you're using any type of cutting implement or saw. Now, after you've gotten all your pieces together, you just go ahead and add a really super thin bead of glue along the very edge of the longest side of the shingle. Now, I'm using weld bond glue because it really catches really nicely, but you can also use tacky glue or Gorilla Wood glue for this. Now, if at any point you have trouble with your sides staying up, you can definitely use a little Lego block to support the side that's still drying. Now, once the two long sides are stable, you can go ahead and start to fit in the two side pieces or the ends. Now, you may have to, if you haven't measured them properly, you may have to sand them off, and you won't have to do a lot of sanding because the pieces are very thin. And you can see in this frame, the process is very simple. It was so simple that I got carried away and I just kept making them over and over again. Now, to create the type of boxes I'm making, you want to make two duplicate squares so that one will be the bottom and the other one will be the lid. So now you can really see how cute and versatile the little box is. It's useful for so many different things. For a cigar box or a jewelry box or a trinket box. Now you can see in this frame for this particular box, I did a different type of lid. I didn't match the two boxes together. I used one single shingle. Wow, that sounds like a tongue twister. But I used an individual shingle and then I beveled off another piece of wood that was a little bit smaller that would leave sort of a border to make it look a little bit more decorative and dressy. Now you will need to take your time and do an ample amount of sanding to get it really smooth so it'll look refined. And I do believe that piece on top was a piece of a popsicle stick remnant, so it definitely had to be smoothed out. And now you can see how nice the two pieces look together and how that really changes the feel of the type of box you get based on the lid. Now in this frame, I'm giving a little extra attention to the box itself because I didn't cut my little coffee stir sticks perfectly. And, the cuts for the sides weren't perfect either. So I definitely need to sand them down so that everything will be nice and square and smooth. So dolls, you want to take your time with this. I kind of made them kind of quickly because I was just having fun at it. But I wanted to show you my technique in case this is something you want to try. But the more time you take with it to make sure all the pieces are really square and really sharp and that you sand them really nicely, you can really end up with a really, really lovely piece. And another thing I want to mention, after you do your really coarse sanding to shave things down and get them to the right lengths and height, you want to take a moment to go back with finer sandpaper so you can really, really give your piece a really smooth, refined finish, especially if you're making a box for more delicate use like a jewelry box. Now this little box, I made the lid to fit on top of a smaller box, and the lid is kind of coarse because I made it with a coarser shingle, so it's going to be for more rugged use. Now, dolls, you can see with these two lids, I put them together, they're going to make a different type of box. So I made a couple like that because I really like the shape of them. And the technique is actually similar to what I did when I made the cash box for the dress shop Dollhouse office. I will leave a link in the description for that as well. Now I'm going to show you one more variation of the same type of box. Now I made one with a flat lid with the raised beveled piece on top, and now I'm doing one of the squared off boxes and put one of those beveled pieces on that one as well. So it's any number of ways you can make it, dolls. You're only limited by your own imagination. Now, dolls, at this point, I began to stain my little boxes, and I stopped the camera because I didn't want you to see my bad behavior. So I'm just going to show you what it looks like now that they're all done. And dolls, I got so tickled about how they were turning out, I got excited and started making some more. So after my frenzy of box building ended, I went on to decorate and line the boxes. And in the spirit of recycling, not being wasteful, and using what I have on hand, I picked up a lot of scraps and remnant pieces of old wallpaper. I put them to use by lining the insides of the tiny boxes because many of the little scraps were the perfect size for the insides of the boxes. It was like I was saving them just for this project. So I went on to add them and trim them to size to fit the inside of the boxes, and I added it in various different ways. Now, for these boxes, I actually did not use hinges or traditional hinges. I had quite a bit of seam binding that was gifted to me, and I used that for my hinges. And this particular box, I added a third beveled layer, again to make it look more decorative. Now, after I got done with that part and had stained all the boxes, I went on to start adding wallpaper pieces to the outside of some. Then I added some of the gold nail art studs. And I also used some other nail art pieces to create a clasp or closure to the outside of the box. This one reminds me of those old jewelry cedar boxes they used to have in the 70s. Now for this box, I used some fabric decorative border and wrapped it all around the outside of the box and actually glued it together, but after the border dried, I split it along the lines of where the box would open. Now after trimming any frays, you can seal the fabric with watered down glue or Mod Podge. And then I added one of those nail art pieces to the front of that one to be a clasp as well. And I also went ahead and lined it with that wallpaper too. Now, in similar fashion as how I did the last one, this one I covered it totally with a piece of that bordered fabric. And I started in the front and added glue. Now, you will have to hold it a minute until the fabric takes hold, but your end result is really, really nice. And you just want to go ahead and pull the fabric around the entire body of the box, making sure you add ample amount of glue. Also, make sure you take time to spread the glue so you don't have lump under the fabric. Now, when you've completely covered the little wooden box, you're going to need to allow the main body of the fabric to dry before you do the sides. So here, I just wanted to show you some of the little boxes up close to see how they ended up and how I embellished them. So as I mentioned before, dolls, you're only limited by your imagination. This one I added little brass feet to it. And then this one I added a jewel or stone to it. Some I lined, some I didn't line, some I added fabric. Again, just have fun with it. There is no right or wrong way. That's what's really wonderful about art. And dolls, I want to encourage you to take a moment to make some little boxes like this. Anytime I do this type of project, I always seem to go into a frenzy and make way more than I need. It's almost like in that moment I'm trying to exhaust all the immediate possibilities. And even after all these I've done, there's at least 25 more I'm thinking of doing. I guess because it's really simple and a lot of fun. Now, if you've enjoyed this video today and you want to see more content like this, go ahead and subscribe. And always look for me on Mondays and Wednesdays after 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I always enjoy so much reading your comments and creating these videos for you dolls. So let me know what you think. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next episode of Little Gretchen's Workshop. Bye-bye now, dolls.